traitor scum.
There will be a substantial reward if you are free to...
It is done. If it is impossible...
25. Weirdest and most controversial 1970s action figures you never knew existed. What if I told you that the most controversial action figures of the 1970s weren't banned when they came out, but would be illegal to sell today? In the next few minutes, you'll come to know how one toy turned a real man's disability into a superhero gimmick parents couldn't believe was real, how a beloved doll was designed to go through puberty, and why a certain Star Wars figure became the most valuable toy in history because it was too dangerous to release. But first, let me show you the 8-inch detective with hook hands that somehow made it into every toy aisle in America.
Now you can play world's greatest investigator with J.J. Arms, the action figure with
J.J. Arms, Ideal, 1976. Here he is, folks. The real-life detective with prosthetic hooks who became an unlikely action figure superstar. J.J. Arms stood 8 inches tall with a stern expression and a killer 3-piece suit that screamed, "Tough guy, private eye." But the pièce de resistance? Those spring-loaded hook hands that could snap around his pistol faster than you could say, maybe this is in poor taste. While Ideal Toys based the figure on an actual Texas detective who lost both hands in an explosion,
El Paso's famous private investigator J.J. Arms is still solving cases at the age of 88.
disability advocates weren't exactly thrilled. Several newspaper columns argued the toy turned limb loss into a violent gimmick, essentially making prosthetics seem like cool weapons rather than necessary medical devices. Retailers got cold feet after the backlash, and sales never matched expectations. You just know some marketing genius pitched this in a board meeting with, "Kids'll love him. He's got hooks for hands."
Of course, Mr. Arms' collection of custom suits can be seen, but he's not spending his days at home. His phone constantly ringing from people with problems that need solving.
Yes, may I help you?
And everyone just nodded along like this was completely normal. Sure, let's make disability into a crime-fighting superpower. What could possibly go wrong? Today, this figure would never make it past the first pitch meeting without someone saying, "Hey, maybe exploiting a person's disability as a toy gimmick isn't the best look for our brand." But the 70s were different.
You can stick Suckerman on the weird.
Suckerman, Mattel, 1978. Meet Suckerman, the rubber alien whose entire existence was premised on the revolutionary concept of sticking to windows. This slimy green monstrosity sported an astounding 46 individual suction cups across his body, promising kids hours of fun slapping him against smooth surfaces.
Party. That sucked. Let's say you went to a toy store to buy Star Wars figures and there wasn't any. Well, you could buy Suckerman, and that didn't suck.
At least, that was the theory. In reality, Suckerman quickly earned the nickname Suckerman among frustrated kids. Those 46 suction cups either refused to stick to anything at all, or worse, left greasy, impossible to remove rings on your parents' windows, walls, and freshly painted woodwork. By Christmas morning, parents nationwide were discovering their holiday gift had become a home-destroying nightmare. The toy landed on practically every worst gift list by the 1978 holiday season. One newspaper reportedly called it the gift that keeps on taking, as in taking the paint off your walls. Returns piled up faster than holiday fruitcakes, and by New Year's, Mattel knew they had a costly disaster on their hands. In today's hyper-tested product environment, Suckerman would have been killed after the first focus group when parents realized their home decor was being permanently altered by alien slime residue. Some marketing concepts should just stay on the drawing board.
Growing up, Skipper. She's 2 dolls in one.
Growing Up Skipper, Mattel, 1975. If you ever wondered how Mattel explained puberty to children in the 1970s, wonder no more. Growing Up Skipper was Barbie's little sister with a decidedly disturbing twist.
We have Growing Up Skipper.
When you twisted her arm, she literally sprouted up an inch taller and developed actual plastic breasts that popped out from her previously flat chest. Nothing creepy about that at all. Marketed with the tagline, "2 dolls in one," for twice as much fun. This mechanical puberty lesson didn't exactly thrill parents of America. Child development experts and women's groups called it a premature sexualization of a character marketed to young girls.
There we go. All right, but what happens is when you twist her arm, she actually grows up. She grows taller and her boobs grow out.
The doll essentially turned a normal human development process into a strange party trick. The awkward TV coverage was the final nail.
Growing up Skipper? May I? Okay. Watch this. Ah! Her boobs grow.
In Skipper's developing coffin. Imagine serious news anchors demonstrating how Barbie's kid sister blossomed into womanhood with a twist of her arm. The uncomfortable silence after these demonstrations told Mattel everything they needed to know, and the growing gimmick was dropped faster than a teen's voice after just one season. Today, this doll would be laughed out of every product development meeting in America. You want to make what happen when kids play with the doll? Sometimes you have to wonder what exactly was in the water coolers at toy companies in the 70s.
G.I. Joe fighting man perfection.
Japanese Imperial Soldier. G.I. Joe, Soldiers of the World. Hasbro, 1966. In what might be the most tone-deaf addition to the G.I. Joe lineup, Hasbro decided to complete their World War II roster with an enemy Japanese Imperial soldier figure, complete with rising sun flag and full Imperial military gear. The kicker? They released this just 20 years after the end of the war.
The three gold buttons close together. Okay. And then there's another version that has the buttons more spaced out, and they're more of a green.
When millions of veterans who fought in the Pacific were very much alive and buying toys for their kids, veterans groups were, unsurprisingly, not thrilled about children role-playing as the enemy that many had lost friends fighting against. Several major retailers balked at glorifying the foe so soon after the actual conflict. The resulting pressure forced Hasbro to pull the figure after an extremely limited production run. In our current climate, this figure would never even make it to the prototype stage without someone pointing out the obvious insensitivity. But the 60s and 70s operated on a different wavelength of cultural awareness.
It's the new Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner.
Rocket-firing Boba Fett. Kenner. Advertised 1979. The holy grail of Star Wars collecting started as a broken promise. Kenner advertised a mail-away Boba Fett figure with a spring-loaded backpack rocket that could actually launch.
Laser rifle. Boba Fett is not yet available in stores, but you can get him free with 4 proofs.
Kids across America dutifully collected proofs of purchase, mailed them in, and awaited the coolest Star Wars figure ever created. What they got instead was major disappointment. After a wave of new toy safety regulations and concerns about projectile toys, Kenner made a last-minute decision to scrap the firing mechanism.
Do it. Obviously, when Battlestar Galactica had their issues, we immediately just shut it down.
The rocket was permanently glued into place, transforming the coolest feature into just another piece of plastic. The irony? This cancellation created the most valuable Star Wars figure in history. The few unglued prototypes that escaped destruction have sold for more than $150,000 at auction. That's right. A toy that never actually made it to market in its intended form is now worth more than a college education. Today, toy companies would never advertise a feature before ensuring it met all safety standards. But in the Wild West days of the late 70s toy boom, companies regularly promised the moon and delivered a rock when reality and lawyers set in.
Kenner presents new alien action figure.
18-inch Alien. Kenner, 1979. In what might be the most bizarre marketing decision of the decade, Kenner took the terrifying xenomorph from Ridley Scott's very R-rated Alien and thought, yes, this nightmare-inducing monster belongs in the children's toy aisle. Standing 18 inches tall with a semi-translucent skull and mechanized snapping inner jaws, this horror movie icon was marketed alongside Star Wars figures and other kid-friendly toys. Parents were understandably confused and horrified when their children started begging for the terrifying creature that had adults screaming in theaters. One mother reportedly told a newspaper it was pure nightmare fuel being marketed to elementary school kids. The backlash was swift, with many major retail chains refusing reorders after the initial shipment. Kenner quickly realized their miscalculation when the big beast became a shelf warmer nobody wanted to make eye contact with. After just one production wave, they pulled the xenomorph faster than you could say, in space, no one can hear you scream. Today, no marketing team would dream of creating a detailed action figure of an R-rated movie monster specifically for the children's market. But the late 70s existed in that magical time before focus groups ruled product development.
I have a doll here that's a G.I. Joe, actually.
G.I. Nurse Action Girl, Hasbro, 1967. In what should have been a groundbreaking moment for gender equality in toys, Hasbro attempted to expand the G.I. Joe universe with the G.I. Nurse Action Girl figure. Clad in a white nurse's uniform and ready for medical duty, she represented the women who served valiantly in military medical roles. The problem? Toy stores had absolutely no idea where to put her. Was she a boy's toy to be shelved with other military figures? Or was she a girl's doll to be banished to the pink aisle? This marketing confusion, combined with boys largely ignoring a non-combatant nurse figure, doomed her from the start. The real death blow came from industry pundits and comedians who couldn't resist making jokes about boys playing nurse, because apparently saving lives was somehow less masculine than pretend killing people. The unfortunate combination of mixed marketing messages and society's gender hang-ups killed sales within months. Today, this figure would probably be celebrated as a pioneering female character in a male-dominated toy line. But in the 60s, neither retailers nor consumers were quite ready for action figures that crossed traditional gender lines.
Imagine you enter the world of the Shogun Warriors. They're on
Shogun Warriors, missile-firing robots, Mattel, 1978-80. These 2-foot-tall die-cast robot behemoths were every boy's dream, until someone lost an eye. The Shogun Warriors could launch hard plastic fists like rockets clear across a room with enough force to knock items off shelves. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, plenty. After multiple eye injury scares and choking incidents with the smaller missiles, these Japanese-inspired metal monsters found themselves in the safety crosshairs. Following new regulations banning loose projectiles after the Battlestar Galactica tragedy, Mattel was forced to either tether the missiles with strings or remove the firing mechanisms altogether.
Gun Warrior Collection, each sold separately, made with die-cast metal, built for action. You can launch his fists, switch him around, and he's an armored vehicle.
With their most exciting play feature neutered, the mighty Shogun Warriors lost their appeal quickly. Parents weren't thrilled about spending big money on toys that could no longer perform their advertised stunts. The once mighty robot warriors were relegated to clearance bins by 1980. Modern toy designers have managed to create safe launching mechanisms that maintain the fun while eliminating the danger. But in the 70s, the choice was often between awesome but dangerous or safe but boring, with predictable results for sales when forced to choose the latter.
So this is Hugo, huh? He kind of looks like an adult baby.
Hugo, man of 1,000 faces. Kenner, 1975. Just think of gifting your child a bald, blank-eyed mannequin head with putty scars, sinister masks, and fake blood. What could be more fun? Apparently, Kenner thought this was the perfect children's toy when they released Hugo. Man of 1,000 faces, essentially a serial killer starter kit, disguised as a creative toy. This disturbing disguise set let kids transform the expressionless head into various monstrosities using wigs, scars, and masks that wouldn't look out of place in a horror movie. Parent groups quickly labeled it nightmare material that was giving children actual bad dreams. The creepy, vacant eyes of the base head didn't help matters.
I think it may be time for another disguise. Don't be afraid, toy fans. It's just Hugo, man of 1,000 faces.
Despite heavy television advertising, imagine those commercials after dark, the nightmare-inducing disguise kit never reached projected sales. It turns out parents weren't keen on encouraging their kids to explore the joys of creating horrifying face configurations before bedtime. In today's market, Hugo might actually succeed as an adult collectible or Halloween prop. But as a mainstream children's toy, the focus group footage alone would terrify marketing executives.
This is Evel Knievel and the Evel Knievel shock-absorbing stunt cycle.
Evel Knievel, Stunt Cycle, Ideal, 1973. The Evel Knievel Stunt Cycle didn't just recreate the Daredevil's famous jumps, it sent thousands of kids to emergency rooms nationwide.
It is done. If it is impossible...
This ingenious but dangerous toy used a powerful flywheel mechanism that could launch the motorcycle and its helmeted rider across rooms at speeds up to 20 miles per hour, fast enough to cause serious damage to ankles, furniture, and younger siblings. Doctors across America reported what they called the Christmas morning spike, a wave of bruises, lacerations, and even fractures directly attributable to this popular toy. The BBC later featured it in a documentary about dangerous toys, where emergency room doctors recalled the specific injury patterns they came to associate with the stunt cycle. Despite the dangers, it became one of the best-selling toys of the decade. Apparently, in the 70s, the possibility of injury was just considered part of the fun. One vintage commercial even proudly proclaimed it could crash into walls and keep on going, a feature parents came to dread. Today's safety standards would require speed limiters, impact-absorbing materials, and probably a helmet for the kid playing with it, not just the plastic rider. The raw, unregulated power of the original would never reach store shelves now.
It's Kenner's new Stretch Monster.
Stretch Monster, Kenner, 1978. As the nemesis to the popular Stretch Armstrong, the Stretch Monster seemed like a natural addition to Kenner's line of gel-filled stretchy figures. There was just one problem. While Armstrong was relatively durable, Monster had a nasty habit of splitting at the seams and leaking its strange, sticky goo all over carpets, clothing, and furniture. The mysterious syrup inside these toys was practically impossible to remove from fabric. Parents nationwide were horrified to discover their kid's new toy had permanently damaged carpeting and upholstery. Complaint letters piled up at Kenner headquarters, with some parents even sending cleaning bills. The Green Menace disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Kenner never reissued the creature after the initial disastrous run, and surviving specimens in good condition are now collector's items precisely because so many of them self-destructed. Modern toy testing would quickly identify this durability issue long before production. Today's stretchy toys use silicone compounds specifically designed not to stain or damage household items when the inevitable rupture occurs.
Mattel Astro Space Center. The amazing new Unitread and Space Bubble is on the moon.
Major Matt Mason, Mattel, 1966. Major Matt Mason looked incredible with his realistic spacesuit and bendable limbs that could hold any astronaut pose.
Let's talk about this guy first. This is not Major Matt Mason, but this is his buddy, Sergeant Storm.
The problem? Those bendable limbs contained a wire skeleton that inevitably broke through the rubber after repeated play, creating sharp metal spikes that poked and scratched unsuspecting children. Hobby magazines of the era nicknamed him Major Matt Mamum due to the number of kids sporting unexplained scratches after playtime. Parents began noticing that their children's astronaut figures were turning into tiny weapons as the metal wire skeleton pierced through the rubber exterior of arms and legs. The unexpected danger led Mattel to completely rethink joint design in later action figure lines. The painful lesson of Major Matt Mason directly influenced the development of safer articulation systems that wouldn't transform into pokey hazards with use. Modern safety standards would never allow metal wire inside a rubber toy without sufficient safeguards against eventual exposure. Today's figures use plastic internal structures or completely different joint mechanisms to prevent similar failures. Mike Power, Atomic Man, 1975. Hasbro's attempt to cash in on the Bionic craze of the mid-70s resulted in G.I. Joe's friend Mike Power, the Atomic Man, with a spinning helicopter blade hand. This questionable play feature violated two important rules. Don't infringe on competitors' trademarks, and don't give kids high-speed spinning toys to bring to school. When Hasbro tried to brand him as their Bionic Man, they promptly received cease and desist letters from the owners of the $6 Million Man, who had licensed the term to Kenner. The resulting legal battles distracted from the launch and muddied the marketing message.
Hasbro lost out to Kenner on the licensing for the Bionic Man figure and line of toys. It's based on the television series that first aired on ABC in 1973.
Meanwhile, elementary schools across America were banning the toy after incidents of the whirring helicopter blade hand hitting other children or damaging school property. The combination of legal troubles and playground bans significantly shortened Mike Power's atomic lifespan on toy shelves. Today, both the potential trademark infringement and the safety issues would be identified and eliminated during development. The high-speed spinning hand would require a safety mechanism, and the marketing department would ensure all terminology was legally cleared.
Please.
Battlestar Galactica, Colonial Viper, and Cylon Raider. Mattel, 1978.
The Cylon Raider meets the Colonial Viper starship used.
These Battlestar Galactica vehicles packed a deadly secret, spring-loaded red missiles that could launch with alarming force. The disaster struck when a 4-year-old child accidentally inhaled one of these projectiles and tragically died. This very real tragedy triggered an unprecedented nationwide recall backed by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. The fallout was immediate and industry-changing. Mattel was forced to redesign the entire Galactica toy line with non-firing missiles permanently affixed to the vehicles. More significantly, this incident rewrote projectile safety standards overnight, affecting toy design across the entire industry for decades to come. The redesigned toys never captured the same excitement, and the pall cast over the line by the tragedy dampened enthusiasm among both retailers and customers. What started as a promising sci-fi toy line became a cautionary tale about the very real dangers of toy projectiles. Today, toys undergo rigorous safety testing, specifically because of incidents like this. Modern missile-firing toys feature oversized, soft-tipped projectiles that couldn't possibly be swallowed. This tragic case literally changed how toys are made. Moonraker Jaws, Mego, 1979. In attempting to faithfully recreate the metal-mouthed villain from the James Bond film, Moonraker, Mego created what might be the most obvious choking hazard of the decade. To mimic the character's signature steel bite, they embedded a loose magnet in his mouth as detachable teeth, which, unsurprisingly, could easily detach and be swallowed by children. The figure saw only limited European release before safety concerns shut down wider distribution. Parents and retailers quickly realized that a toy whose main feature could literally be ingested was probably not the best idea. Mego quietly discontinued the figure before it could reach American shores in significant numbers. The result of this safety debacle is that original Jaws figures are now among the rarest and most valuable Mego products, with collectors paying thousands for sealed examples. Nothing drives up collectible value quite like potentially lethal, combined with limited release. Today's safety testing would catch this hazard immediately. Any detachable part must be large enough to prevent swallowing or require a force well beyond what a child could apply to remove it.
Fembot, new from Kenner. And
Fembot, Kenner, 1977. The Fembot action figure from the Bionic Woman series featured a disturbing play pattern. Children were encouraged to rip off a human-looking face mask to reveal a horrifying skull-like robot face underneath. The television commercials showed kids gleefully exposing the monster beneath the beauty in what amounted to a miniature horror movie. Parents, particularly those of younger girls who were the target audience, complained that the figure was too frightening and caused nightmares. The stark contrast between the pleasant human appearance and the terrifying robot skull beneath was simply too jarring for many children. Trade journal feedback eventually led Kenner to tone down the advertising, removing the more dramatic, face-ripping moments from later commercial runs. However, the damage was done, and the Fembot remains one of the more unsettling entries in the Bionic Woman line. Modern toy marketing is much more careful about potentially frightening imagery, especially for lines targeting younger children. Today, such a dramatic transformation would likely be market-tested extensively before being approved for a children's toy line.
Dr. Steele, you've got Big Jim and Big Jeff hacking cross...
Dr. Steele, Big Jim line, Mattel 1974. In what reads like a checklist of offensive Asian stereotypes, Mattel's Dr. Steele from the Big Jim action figure line sported a chrome hand, Fu Manchu facial hair, bare chest with dragon tattoos, and was described as a karate master villain. The character leaned heavily into racist tropes that portrayed Asian men as exotic, mystical threats. Both US and UK press outlets criticized the figure as a racist pastiche that reinforced harmful stereotypes. Asian American advocacy groups pointed out that the toy's design combined multiple offensive cliches into a single problematic package aimed at impressionable children. Facing mounting criticism, Mattel quietly discontinued Dr. Steele after a brief production run. The figure disappeared from marketing materials and vanished from store shelves without acknowledgement of the controversy. Today's design process would flag these problematic elements immediately. Toy companies now typically consult cultural sensitivity experts during character development to avoid reinforcing harmful stereotypes.
Is that the $6 million man? No, it's Maskatron, the robot.
Maskatron, Kenner, 1976. The $6 million man's villain. Maskatron came with 3 thin, snap-off faces that could be stored inside his body, or more commonly, lost immediately, or shot across the room like tiny plastic frisbees. These small, easily detachable parts were the stuff of pediatricians' nightmares. Medical professionals quickly identified the masks as classic choking hazards for younger siblings who might find the discarded faces. Some concerned retailers took matters into their own hands, affixing warning stickers to the packaging, advising parents to keep the toy away from children under 3. Despite the safety concerns, Maskatron remained popular enough to complete his production run, likely because the removable face gimmick was central to the character's identity from the television show. Sometimes, play value trumped safety in the wild toy landscape of the 70s. Modern toy safety regulations would require the faces to either be significantly larger, tethered to the figure, or designed with a release mechanism requiring strength beyond what a toddler could apply. The days of small, easily detached parts in children's toys are largely behind us.
Savage's hidden fortress. It's Rambo in his Skyfire assault helicopter.
Nomad, Coleco, 1986. Though slightly outside our 70s window, this 80s controversy deserves mention. Coleco's Rambo line included Nomad, a desert terrorist figure that relied on every negative Middle Eastern stereotype imaginable. With exaggerated features and traditional dress portrayed as villainous, the figure caused immediate backlash. Parents and advocacy groups protested the figure for stereotyping Middle Eastern people as extremists and terrorists. The controversy made headlines nationwide, with cultural experts pointing out the harmful impact such caricatures could have on children's perceptions of entire ethnic groups. Many retail chains declined to stock the character, unwilling to associate their stores with what was widely perceived as racist merchandise. The controversy contributed to the already struggling Rambo line's quick demise in the increasingly sensitive 80s toy market. Today, character design goes through extensive review to avoid harmful ethnic stereotyping. Villain characters are designed to avoid demonizing specific cultures or ethnicities, reflecting the understanding that children's toys help shape their worldview.
Our missiles are forged from military-grade steel with titanium-plated tips for maximum speed.
Lawn darts, 1970s. While not technically action figures, no list of controversial 70s toys would be complete without lawn darts, possibly the most lethal toy ever mass-marketed to children. These heavy metal-tipped missiles were meant to be tossed underhand toward rings placed on the ground.
This isn't child's play, according to the Food and Drug Administration. The game is called lawn darts.
Essentially combining darts with horseshoes in a game for the whole family. The resulting casualties were predictable and tragic. The weighted darts injured hundreds and killed at least 3 children when they landed on heads, faces, and bodies. Despite the mounting evidence of danger, it took until 1988 for an outright U.S. ban to take effect. The Consumer Product Safety Commission still cites lawn darts as a textbook case of delayed but decisive toy regulation. The case is often used in training materials as an example of how seemingly innocent products can pose deadly risks when basic physics and predictable child behavior aren't considered. Today, the entire concept would be rejected instantly as an obvious hazard. Modern versions use weighted plastic with soft tips that couldn't penetrate skin or cause serious injury.
The $6 Million Man and the new Bionic Transport and Repair Station.
Rockets crash!
$6 Million. Man with Bionic Eye, Kenner, 1975. Kenner's $6 Million Man figure featured a bionic eye gimmick that let kids peer through a tiny lens in the back of Steve Austin's head to see through his bionic eye. On paper, it sounded amazing. In practice, it was both disappointing and potentially unsanitary. The tiny lens distorted vision rather than enhancing it, leaving kids underwhelmed by the lackluster bionic view. Worse, the eye cavity quickly became a collector of dust, hair, and grime that was nearly impossible to clean. Some consumer columnists even flagged the toy as a hygiene risk, noting that children often shared the looking experience by taking turns pressing their faces against the figure's head. Despite the concerns, the figure sold well enough to remain in production, though later versions emphasized other features over the questionable eye gimmick. Sometimes brand recognition trumped the ick factor, even in the 70s. Today's toy designers would either develop a more hygienic viewing system or abandon the concept entirely in favor of digital alternatives. The idea of kids sharing a toy by pressing their eyes against it would raise immediate red flags in modern product development.
Weeble's Haunted House.
Weeble's Haunted House, Hasbro, 1976. The Weeble's Haunted House delighted children with its spooky, glow-in-the-dark ghosts and clever trapdoor features. However, the same small accessories and moving parts that made it exciting also made it dangerous for younger siblings who might put the tiny pieces in their mouths. While the set was never officially recalled, safety writers and parenting columnists frequently warned about its choking hazards. The small ghost figures and detachable trapdoor components were particularly concerning for households with children of mixed ages. Hasbro defended the toy as being appropriately labeled for older children, but retailers reported parents returning the sets after realizing the tiny parts posed dangers to toddlers in the same household. The controversy highlighted the challenge of designing play sets with enough features to interest older kids without creating hazards for younger ones. Modern versions of similar play sets include much larger components specifically designed to fail choke tube testing, ensuring pieces are too large to be swallowed even if they become detached. Escape from Colditz. Action Man, 1974. The Action Man. Escape from Colditz set allowed children to roleplay as Allied prisoners planning escapes from a Nazi POW camp, complete with German sentry uniforms and guard tower. Some educators and commentators felt it trivialized the very real suffering experienced by actual prisoners of war. While collectors today appreciate the historical detail, the set drew mild press criticism at the time for turning DRH2 into a board game jailbreak without appropriate context about the genuine hardships faced by real POWs. Critics argued that transforming historical trauma into casual playtime fun was disrespectful to veterans. The controversy was relatively muted compared to others on our list, but it represents an early example of questioning whether certain historical events should be reimagined as children's entertainment. The set completed its planned production run despite the concerns. Today, historically themed toys typically include educational elements or age-appropriate context to help children understand the real events that inspired them. Manufacturers increasingly recognize their role in shaping how children perceive historical events.
For aspiring young professional wrestlers, there is the Stretch Armstrong doll, one of the most elastic individuals in the history of toydom.
Stretch Armstrong, Kenner, 1976. The original Stretch Armstrong seemed simple enough. A muscle-bound figure filled with a gel-like substance that allowed him to stretch to several times his original length. The problem emerged when the sealed latex body inevitably developed tiny tears or punctures, leading to the sticky corn syrup filling leaking everywhere. Parents across America discovered the hard way that corn syrup makes an excellent adhesive when dried and is nearly impossible to completely remove from carpets, upholstery, and clothing. The leakage problem was so common that many toy stores developed special refund policies specifically for damaged stretch figures. The sticky situation didn't stop Stretch Armstrong from becoming an iconic toy, but it did lead to countless ruined outfits and furniture pieces throughout the 70s. Kenner eventually improved the formula and sealing methods, but not before creating a generation of parents who instinctively flinched at the sight of anything stretchy. Modern versions use specially formulated non-staining gel compounds and much more durable external materials, significantly reducing the leak risk. Product testing now specifically looks for potential household damage from toy failures, a direct result of lessons learned from sticky situations like this. And there you have it, folks. Our top 25 weirdest 1970s action figures that time tried to forget. These shocking vintage toys would never make it past today's safety standard. From forgotten treasures to banned toys from the 70s, we've unearthed the most controversial plastic nightmares of an unregulated era. Can you believe we played with these bizarre toys? Or that our parents bought us these dangerous contraptions? Yet somehow, we survived. And now these collectible 70s toys have become rare and valuable. Nothing increases worth quite like literally illegal to manufacture now. If you enjoyed this deep dive into strange action figures, smash subscribe for more vintage toy madness. Check out our 1970s toy playlist to see how these toys you'll never see again were marketed to kids.